Hello and welcome to Soulergy. My name is Peace, one of the pastors here at Pinnacle Village. Now, Soulergy is our time where we can reflect, listen, learn, and deepen our walk with God. Now, this Soulergy, we want to talk about prayer. Now, I'm sure we've prayed before, and as you grow up, you've been more exposed to prayer. You've also see that there's different types and different forms of prayer. You see different religions pray as well. And you see all of this, and we tend to ask more questions about prayer. Like, does prayer work? How does prayer work? How do I get better at praying? How come some prayers get answered and some prayers don't? How come some people get their prayers answered, but I don't get to see my prayers answered? And so we're just so filled with questions about prayer, and yet we're continue to encourage to pray and keep on praying. And pastors keep emphasizing prayer. And so you're like, I want to pray, but I don't think it works. So why should I even pray? And so forth and so on. And if that is you, don't worry, you're not lost. You're not alone. Because even the disciples of Jesus asked him, how does one pray? And they asked and requested Jesus to teach them to pray. And so we begin with curiosity and hopefully with desire and the willingness to learn more about prayer. And I hope that through the next 15 days, we get to understand the beauty, the wonders, and the power of prayer. Let's begin day one on prayer as we talk about desire. Now, desire is so important when it comes to prayer because have you ever wondered, why do I pray? Well, maybe we pray because there's a need, there's a want, there's something we are asking God for. However, that's not the complete picture of prayer. That's only one part of prayer that we tend to highlight and tend to be more focused on. But prayer itself is a desire, it's wanting to meet God. And I'm sure it's there when we're asking for things. It's just that it's not in the forefront of our minds. However, desire is so important, and it's so important we get desire right because it's our desire that will really set the course on how our prayers will be effective. James K.H. Smith, a professor and a theologian, says our wants and longings and desires are at the core of our identity, the wellspring from which our actions and behavior flow. Our wants reverberate from our heart, the epicenter of the human person. What he's saying is that we are what we desire. For example, let's talk about wellness and fitness. If we want to be healthier, we will revolve our life choices around that desire to be healthy and fit. We will fix our diet. Our trip to the grocery store, it'll change our choices and our food selection. We'll sign up for a gym. We'll talk to a coach. We'll rearrange our schedule. You see, that's just from a single goal or a single desire to fix our lifestyle, to be healthy. And so it's the same way when it comes to our prayer as well. When we desire to seek after God, it starts to change us. It starts to morph in how we see and give our attention to God. And the first desire to deeply desire is to deny. Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. He's saying if you have a desire to be my disciple, if you have a desire to follow me, first you have to learn how to say no. Just going back to the example of, let's say, wanting to be fit. If you want to be fit, you're saying yes to the goal of fitness, yes to a healthy lifestyle, yes to wellness. However, that also requires us to say no to certain things, saying no to eating out, no to snacking, no to sugar. You see, it goes along, it goes hand in hand when we learn how to say no, to deny certain things in order for us to accomplish our desire. Same thing in our work, in our company. We want to excel, so we say no to going out on the weekends. You have a big exam coming up, so we say no to partying and, spending time with friends, and so forth and so on. Our deep desire is very much connected to denying ourselves. And that's what Jesus asked of us. He's saying, if you have the desire to pray and seek after me, what are some things in your life you have to say no to? But there needs to be a sense of denying oneself and saying, I have to say no, and I have to prioritize my prayer. I have to prioritize seeking after God because that's what I want. It's what I truly want. The second is to be desperate. To deeply desire is to be desperate. Now, the word desperate, it's not it's not commonly used today, and it's actually looked at in a negative light. Like he's so desperate or she's so desperate. Like you're begging, and we don't want to be in a position that we're begging for something. Like we want to be in control. We want to be cool. We want to be collected. We want to make sure everything is planned out so that we never have to be in a position where we're desperate. However, seeking after God asks and requires us to sometimes be in a mode of desperation. A psalmist in chapter 42 writes these beautiful words. He says, as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? The psalmist is drawing a picture of someone that is just desperately after God. He or she is hungry for God. He is searching for God. He knows that you know um, there's nothing in this life that can satisfy, and he just longs nothing but the presence of God. And a lot of times in prayer, we're not desperate enough. Like even in our own desire, do you ever had a desire and you just quit halfway? And you just thought it's not worth it. This is too much. This takes too much humility. This takes too much of my dignity. This takes too much of my time. And so forth and so on. You make all these excuses. I said, this is not worth it. But sometimes our hearts just needs to be desperate after God and desiring Him more than anything else. As the deer pants for streams of water, how does your soul thirst for God? Or are you just saying, I'm okay, I'm cool. I don't need God sometimes. Like He doesn't want to answer my prayers. Fine. Let me do it on my own. And those moments, I want to encourage us to just be desperate after Him. In those moments, I want to encourage us that that is what God is after. He wants to see how much do you want Him? Is the desire in you real? Are you really after God or only the things that God can do for you? Dallas Willard, he said, desire is an infinite partly because we were made by God, made for God, made to need God, and made to run on God. We can be satisfied only by the one who is infinite, eternal, and able to supply all our needs. We are only at home in God. When we fall away from God, the desire for the infinite remains, but it is displaced upon things that will certainly lead to destruction. And the final point of our day one desire is to delight. God wouldn't want us to run after him if it wasn't something enjoyable. Like he didn't make prayer a torture thing. Like he didn't make he didn't make prayer something that makes us miserable. Actually, he wants us to delight. He wants us to seek after him. And as we are seeking after God, we find joy, we find pleasure, we find delight in running after God. So when we really desire, it brings us joy. It should bring us joy. It's like after long days of work, what do you look forward to? The reason why you hurry away from work is hopefully not because you hate work so much, but your desire is actually to spend more time with your family and your kids. So you run home, you rush home, You get there as soon as and quick as possible because that is really where your desire is. And the same way in our approach to God, He wants us to have delight when we pursue Him and run after Him. When was the last time when you just sought after God with just full joy, just wanting nothing but to pray? Wouldn't that change our perspective on prayer and reaching out and crying out to God? Wouldn't it change how we pray and our attitude of prayer if only we would just run to Him out of delight? Like you want God so much because you know that only He brings life, only He can bring true joy into your hearts and into your life. This is a psalm of David, and he says in chapter 63, he says, "You, God, are my God. I earnestly, I seek you." He's desperate. He needs God. He desires God. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory, because your love is better than life. My lips will glorify you. Notice the words of David were so personal. He was not running after God because someone told him to. This was his own personal desire to seek after him. These are his own words. The man after God's own heart. That just long for God. That was his joy and delight to just want him more than anything in life. And I pray that we can also have that same attitude. And we have to first allow desire to be personal. What do you really want? Are we really after God for him, or are we after God for what he can do for us? Are we after God because that's what I really want, or is it something that other people are saying what I should want? John Mark Comer puts it this way: ultimately, nothing in this life apart from God can satisfy our desires. Tragically, we continue to chase after desires ad infinitum. The result? A chronic state of restlessness, or worse, angst, anger, anxiety, disillusionment, depression, all of which leads to a life of hurry, a life of busyness, overload, shopping, materialism, careerism, life of more, which in return makes us even more restless and the cycle spirals out of control. So we begin day one by asking a very personal question for all of us. What is it that you desire? Let's come before God honestly as we are. Let's just begin by saying, God, I genuinely want to desire you. Help me to seek after you in the next few days as I learn more about prayer and see that prayer is truly powerful and effective.